Hello, welcome back to Trust Yourself. This is episode 9, and this episode is titled 10 Days in the Jungle. So this is all about the story of my adventure down to Peru about 2 months ago, sitting with grandmother ayahuasca 5 times and spending 10 days essentially by myself, fasting nearly, in the jungle. So right now, I'm very cold. I feel tired. It's 4:10 a.m. I'm grateful that God and Spirit are moving me to get up this early. But that's something to preface this with. That's why I'm wearing this blanket. But I feel it's like a part of my divine mission to share this story and share it now. I'm being pushed to share it now. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm also going to share this story without any notes this time. And I'm just going to trust myself and God to lead me and guide me through this. So I'm already feeling warmer now that I'm actually talking rather than fighting it for the last 15 minutes sitting here. That's basically what's been happening. So I can start this one with that first call to return to ayahuasca. And if you watched my Austin video, I think it was video 7, Awakening in Austin, I told the story of how I went to a medicine ceremony right at the end of my trip, and I encountered ayahuasca again in a different type of blended chocolate with psilocybin, and had like a very sudden awakening moment where I had an ego death and I was contemplating a lot and seeing a lot for a few hours on the floor on the kitchen. And I remember during that time on the floor in deep contemplation, there was the fear, but there was also the curiosity. There was the curiosity of like, I want to go deeper. I want to go deeper and approach this with curiosity. So I hadn't been called back to ayahuasca from the previous fall until that moment. And in that moment, there was just a knowingness of like, yep, I'm going to return. And that's how it seems to go with ayahuasca specifically. You're kind of not in or out. It's like, you know, when she calls to you, you know. So she was calling to me, and as I went on my travels in Asia that summer, I saw a text message, I believe, from a woman named Karen, who is, I don't know if she would consider herself a shaman. I'd consider her a shaman. I mean, I don't know the real definition of a shaman yet. I should probably learn that at some point, but this woman was the woman who led me through my first ayahuasca ceremony, and she was putting on something called a 10-day dieta retreat in Peru this October. So I probably saw this message about June, and I decided to sign up. So I had no plans throughout the whole summer of Asia until October 17th through 29th, going down to the jungle in Peru. So I get back from Asia September 12th. So I had like about 5 weeks at home, which was a really long time. And I mean, we'll see. I don't have any plans, but that felt like it could have been the longest stretch I've stayed at home for a while. I don't see myself doing that again. So I end up going to Peru October 16th. And, you know, it's funny because like, my parents don't necessarily know what's going on. Like, they know what I'm doing. They know that, like, some retreat, some, like, they would consider it drug. Like, that's where the mind goes. They know some, like, experience is going on. And even, like, my mom doesn't really support it. She still supports it with her actions, but not, like, her words. So we had to take money out, me, Taylin, and Dale. Taylin and Dale, really fucking great guys. Taylin was the guy who invited me to the last ayahuasca ceremony last year, and Dale is like his best friend, business partner. So they needed passport copies printed and money from the bank, cash. And I don't have access to a bank in cash. I just have like a digital stuff. So my mom pulled out $6,000 for us and photocopied all of our passports. And it's just like, it's so funny and it's so amazing. So thank you, Mom, that she does this, because she doesn't really support the experience, but she supports me underlying it, and she'll help me with it. So it's really beautiful. So I end up like, of course, the night before, like scrambling a little bit to get there. That month had been a lot of chaotic energy too at home. Like I hadn't calmed down yet from Thailand. I was still listening to psytrance music all the time. I was hitting a vape all the time. I was drinking coffee all the time. I still drink coffee a good amount, but the other things have very much diminished. So the night before, I finally look at the packing list, and I need hiking boots, I need a red light flashlight for the jungle, I need a clothesline, I need like wool socks, I need all these crazy things, and like I don't have any of it. So I like get to Dick's, I read this text message about what I need at like 7:45 p.m. and Dick's closes at 8 p.m. So I'm like driving to Dick's Sporting Goods in my hometown and like asking them all these crazy questions. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, to be honest. I'm going to a retreat in the jungle. So on October 16th, I go to the airport. My dad drives me to the airport, and I embark on the journey to Peru. Now, there was a woman named Betty who was going to the retreat as well, and she just so happened to be flying on the same flight from Chicago to Atlanta to Lima. So that was super cool to have somebody to drop in with and chat with, and she was super deep, and we were talking about all the same things. So that was nice to have a friend and a buddy to go with. So her and I end up like getting down to the hotel in Peru. We meet her friend Tosh, and the next morning we're gonna be taking another flight to Pucallpa, and then taking a bus into the jungle to start the adventure. So that morning we get to the airport, we see Taylor and Dale, and like it's so cool. Like I haven't seen Taylor in a year, over a year. First time ever meeting Dale, and me and Taylor always have got along really well. Like we have a very funny, he's just super funny. Like if you don't know this guy, he's super funny. And I don't know how much of it maybe comes across on Twitter, but like in person, this is one of the funniest dudes I've ever met in my life. And Dale and I had really good energy and chemistry at the start too, like just instantly. I was like, you remind me of like one of my best friends from home. So yeah, it was really cool just like getting to know those guys better and traveling with them. And my stories are going to go deep in terms of the actual ceremonies together. But so the travel stuff is kind of boring. It's all logistical. We get there. We basically take a bus from Pucallpa, another city, like 2 hours into the jungle, and then hike like 20 minutes into the retreat center. Into the retreat center, the shaman's retreat center. I'm going to try not to say his name. I don't know if it's supposed to be said. So we get put into our little solo huts, our tambos. Well, actually first, the retreat center very graciously greets us. It's a bunch of like men, I would say, and like one woman who's like mainly cooking for us, and one man, the shaman man, really sharp dude, who I have a lot of stories about coming soon. And there's probably like 7 to 10 other men that are helpers, like cousins, friends, brothers, all the ages of like 25 to like 40. And there's also some little kids running around, which is like super refreshing and nourishing. Like a 5-year-old little kid, a 13-year-old kid, the shaman's son, who was a super cool kid. Dogs running around. It was like a family vibe. And it felt like that at the end especially. But in the middle, they did not feel like family. They felt like enemies, or that was my perception. So that first night, We have like a really great dinner, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to start the diet. So the diet consists of no salt, no sugar, no spice, no fat, very little protein. So we're basically just eating plain rice. I'm going back to it in my mind. Plain rice, maybe some cucumbers, maybe a carrot if you're really lucky, maybe one egg. Some days there was like a piece of chicken or a piece of fish, which was like just an absolute blessing. That was like, oh my gosh, like when you don't eat anything like that for a few days, let alone like 5-10 days, and you get a piece of chicken, it's like, wow, thank you, God. So the diet was pretty strict, and the philosophy I came to is like, oh, we're basically starving our egos out here by not doing anything, and we're starving our bodies by not giving it like this normal nutrition, so that our spirit will grow stronger, and so that we become super sensitive to the medicine and to the jungle and to the environment and to the plants and to the energies and the spirits and all of it. So that is what happened. The longer I stayed in there, the more sensitive I got. So the diet starts, and the next day is the night of the first ceremony. So there's going to be 5 ceremonies over 10 days. And the first ceremony seemed like she, if I ever say she in this video, it's she with like a capital S. And it's referring to Grandmother Ayahuasca. And you might be like, what are you talking about, Grandmother Ayahuasca? There is a spirit within everything, but there's a spirit within plants. And there's a spirit within ayahuasca, and it's this wise grandmother spirit that's going to hold you with love and compassion, but it's going to show you to the depths of what you need to see. Now, the grandfather energy is tobacco or like empacho, but ayahuasca is called the grandmother. And so the grandmother, the ayahuasca, the first night she was just kind of feeling us out, right? Like, she knows that there's going to be 5 ceremonies. Like the one night ceremony I did last year, it was known, and it's known in my own subconscious, conscious, superconscious mind as well. Also, like God knows all, that, oh, there's only one ceremony. So I went deep into the realizations of what I needed at that time. But this first ceremony was really just a prep and a primer for the next 4 ceremonies. So the first ceremony, I remember I take a full shot of the medicine to start. Again, like pretty disgusting, but doesn't taste that disgusting. It gets worse the longer I go. Like every time you have to drink again, it's like, oh my gosh, because you know what you're signing up for. It's not going to be easy. So I take a full cup and nothing's really happening. I'm kind of just like in my head. I'm just thinking a lot. And I get a download. I get one really good download. And a download is like a divine insight channeled. It's like, boom, it just comes to you. It's like a revelation. You can think about it as like a revelation. So the insight was, see, it's hitting again as I'm thinking of it. The insight was, I'm not here for more mental insights. I'm here for heart and spiritual insights. So that was the insight that I got. That was the only insight I got the first cup. And right when I had that download, the facilitators, Karen and the shaman, are like, all right, if anybody's not feeling the effects of the medicine, you can come up and get a second cup. So I go up to get a second cup. I feel a lot of people went up and got a second cup first night because the medicine is just feeling us out and we're feeling it out. So co-creation. So I take the second cup and I start to feel intense emotions. That's about it. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not like having a crazy 4D spiritual experience or any of that stuff yet. I'm just feeling the intense emotions of anger and like this desire to like get into this warrior energy. And this warrior energy is what got me up at 2:15 this morning and was recording this video, even though despite not wanting to do it. It's like the divine servant, the devotion to God. Like these videos feel like a devotion to God. I don't know what's the purpose really. I don't know. I'm just being called to do it. And that warrior energy, I'm seeing that I found within myself through ayahuasca, that I was shown, especially the first night, is playing out in real time, in real life right now, which is great to see it happening. But I got this like intense desire to do push-ups, and like I didn't do them. Like afterwards I told Karen, I was like, I really wanted to do push-ups. She's like, that would have been a first, like you should have done it. And my friend Dale was like, yeah, I wanted to get up and like dance and move, but like I didn't do it. So we were like, yo, like let's make sure we both hold each other to acting as our accountable selves, or our authentic selves, rather. Like, fuck what anybody thinks, just do what you feel. That's what we came to after that. So I got into this like warrior energy, and another big download was like, I gotta get back into this warrior energy. I lost it over the summer. I used to be like, or I forgot it. I temporarily forgot it. I used to be such the warrior type, like 5 a.m. wake-ups, like 4-mile runs in the snow, like cold shower every morning, monk-like discipline, work ethic, grind, focus. And then I went to Thailand and like adventured for 3 months. And I lost some of that spark and that grit and that tenacity and that drive and that warrior spirit and the discipline and the devotion to a mission. So it became clear that I wanted to get that back. And the download I came to at the time was like, I'm going to start doing a martial art. Like, I'm going to do jujitsu or Muay Thai or something to get me into this warrior energy. And it still might be something I do down the line. I end up coming to new realizations about what I want to do in the immediate future soon. But yeah, I have the realization I really want to get back into warrior energy, early wake-ups, like commitment to a practice, an art, a discipline, like a martial art. And like actually fighting, I thought would be really good for me because I have a soft spirit. I have a softer spirit, soft nature. Like I don't like to fight. I've been in fights in middle school with one person, one dude, a few times, who I've done a lot of forgiveness work with. He doesn't know it, but I have. And that was the only time I've ever got into that. Like if you've been in a fight, you know the energy. And it's not healthy energy, right? Now, the distinction is like fighting to like hurt somebody or fighting to live out like the spirit of God. That seems like the difference. Like, am I fighting to beat somebody up? Or am I fighting am I really fighting myself, or am I fighting somebody else? It's that internal battle. So that was the big download during the session one, feeling those intense emotions, just like so much bottled up rage. And the rage was like, because I wasn't in the warrior energy, and I lost that will, and I'd forgotten, I'm going to stop saying lost. I'd forgotten the will, I'd forgotten the discipline, and I was like, there was anger at myself for that. I end up taking a third cup, like 3 cups of ayahuasca is a lot, and I remember feeling really high again for a little bit, like a few minute stretch, but overall it was super mild. And I remember like walking back home, going to sleep, like being fine. And so that was we'll call it day 1. We'll call it day 2. I don't know the exact dates, but it doesn't matter. The next day we'll call day 3. Day 2. It doesn't matter. The next day we'll call day 2. And this day is like, okay, I have 36 hours until the next ayahuasca ceremony. We're not supposed to go talk to anybody else. We're all at our individual huts. We get 2 meals a day of like just basically rice or like oatmeal. The oatmeal and the plantain. Oh, man, that was not tasty. That was not tasty. So there's like nothing to look forward to. There's no internet connection. My phone's on airplane mode and off. I want to make a commitment to myself not to read or listen to anything. I end up listening to a few things like throughout the whole 10 days. But mostly I'm just sitting there. And I'm like, at this point in the start, I'm noticing that same frustration and anger that I felt in the first ceremony. And the frustration and anger was because my ego was so bored. Like, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't working. I wasn't making progress. I wasn't writing. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't making videos. I wasn't going to coffee shops, reading, talking to people on the phone. I wasn't doing all the ego personality things that we do as humans. I was just sitting there, like basically starving my ego. And I had so many thoughts of like, why the fuck am I here? Like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, why the fuck did I want to come here and blah, blah, blah. Like, just like those type of internal self-pity dialogue type of thoughts. So that happens for a while. I like write up a whole business plan, which is like, what is that? That's the ego being bored and looking like, okay, where can I feel important? So I write up a whole business plan. I remember doing that, and maybe writing a little bit of trust yourself, which I've realized like this video series is just trust yourself. And what I wrote there, it had to happen, but it wasn't like, it probably won't be used, but we'll see. So I don't remember much other than that from the first day or two. I think I ended up laying around and sleeping a lot, kind of as a form, like a subtle form of escape, but also like starting to allow myself to just like go to sleep and rest. I was probably sleeping like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. It's almost as if like the depression that is like inherent to most people's frequencies. I've been reading a book about this. Like, most people have the frequency of depression, or at least subtle signs of it, right? Like fatigue, dread, low energy, blah, blah, blah. And it felt like I was kind of like wearing those off through just laying there and sleeping for so long. And I was so bored. I was like, I just want to go to sleep. Like, it's easier. That ends up shifting. So the second ceremony, I was excited. And I was excited because I found that warrior energy. I had done a little bit of workout, so like outside, so I was like feeling kind of pumped, and I was bored. I was bored of the sitting there in the jungle and doing nothing. So I remember going up to the Maloka, the ceremony space, super early, and having like this warrior energy. I had like this let's fucking go energy, and I was telling people about it. I was like, let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. That's like 23-year-old kid, like excited type energy, right? Like, let's fucking do this. And that's like, it's a good part of me. It's why my first name's Jack. Like, it's that young electric energy, and then combined with the other names. So I go in there with that let's fucking go energy, and I'm like, I'm excited. I'm like, it's gonna, like, if it's gonna be a battle, let's fucking go. Let's fucking do this. Like, I'm excited. Let's show me what you gotta show me. And that energy ended up burning me pretty fucking bad. So what happened in this second ceremony was very profound. I end up taking the first cup, and I'm feeling some things. I'm feeling some anxiety. I'm working through some things, but it's not going super deep. I feel like I'm kind of teetering on the edge. And like, when you're on ayahuasca, there's always like a knowingness in you of like, could I take more? Should I take more? And is the only reason I'm not because I'm just scared. And so I was in that state. I was in that in-between state where I was like, I know I could take another cup, or like at least another half a cup or something. Probably should have taken half a cup. No shoulds. I mean, it happened perfectly. But I was in that state where I was like, I don't necessarily want to. Like, I can kind of hang out here and it's like kind of fine. And like, that's always an inner decision. It's an inner decision of, do I want to choose courage in this moment? Because you have to physically drink that stuff. And it's disgusting, one. And it's going to send you to crazy places, too. And you don't know where it's going to send you necessarily. So it takes so much courage in that inner decision to say, I'm going to drink another cup. And so I worked it up. I worked up the courage, and I got another cup. And I also was like a little bit audacious because I had taken 3 cups the first night. So I was like, okay, 2 cups, that's super, like, that's chill. Like, I could take a second cup. I took 3 the first night. So I take the second cup, and, well, I remember I went up to go get the medicine. That was a trippy thing, going up and sitting there and kneeling in front of the shaman and Karen, bowing before them, taking the medicine. It felt, I had the thought a few times, like, it feels like I'm playing some crazy side quest in GTA, where it's like, oh, press A to take the medicine. That's what it felt like. I felt that a few times. Really, like, it was strange. Like I was in a simulation, which maybe we are. So, I take the second cup, and Karen is like, are you not feeling the effects? Like, are you not feeling the medicine? I'm like, I'm feeling it, but I want to go deeper. She's like, okay. I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I took it, and I went deeper. I went way fucking deeper. Way deeper. So where I went felt like, now I can look back, it felt like I was down to the level of the first dimension, or down to the level of the cells and molecules, and I felt stuck there. I felt like I was a cell stuck between other cells, like in this immobile, immovable spot. And from that place of feeling stuck, the mind started to go crazy. And I started to notice everything on a different level. Essentially, I looked at the situation super deeply. The entire situation of us being there in this Maloka, 8 people, there's a shaman, there's guards around, that's interesting. They have guns, that's interesting. Why do they have guns? Oh, there's no phone service out here. Oh, they're starving us. The shaman asked a question, like, are you feeling weak yet? Oh, my passport and wallet are at the shaman's house. Like, whoa, what's going on here? So I had convinced myself that we were in a cult. And I end up realizing later that, yes, in fact, we were in a cult. I notice my eyes are like wanting to not see it, but it's the truth. We were in a cult. Now, I end up having a conversation later that night with Karen, which was one of the greatest conversations of my life. I'm so grateful for that moment, for her bringing me down and having this motherly energy. And right now it's 4:38, which is fascinating because my mom keeps seeing the number 4:38. And I'm talking about Karen as this mother energy. So Karen played this divine mother energy afterwards, and we talked about the cult idea, and like in Spanish, there's no word for cult, it's just culta, and it's just part of culture. So I realized later that, oh yes, this is a cult, but it's okay. That was a big realization. So let me go back to the actual ceremony. So I realized it's a cult, and my mind, the strategist mind, the mind that has been a quarterback his whole life, the mind that has been like CEO type entrepreneur his whole life, the mind that had to strategize his way to like get out of hazing situations in the locker room in college so I wouldn't get hazed, so I could like think my way out of it and run away and escape. Or like the little boy who was being bullied or like pushed underwater at a football team party and like had to figure out a way to escape. That part of me got triggered, as well as probably many past life ancestral patterns. So what I realized there too is I have a lot of Jewish in me, and the Jewish people have been persecuted and chased after and tortured and killed and all of this for thousands of years, as well as probably other parts of my race and my ethnicities. So that was all combining into this like full-on fear, fight or flight response. It was like I was experiencing it all: fight, flight, freeze, and then I learned about a fourth one called fawn, like fawning appreciation at whoever it is that you're scared of, which I was definitely doing, and it was funny because I think they could pick up on it. I think the shaman could pick up on it. Interesting guy. I don't know how I feel about all of it still, but it happened. I learned a lot about the world, about human nature, about spiritual reality. I learned a lot from all of this. So, I am convinced we're in a cult, and my mind goes into strategy mode. I'm like, oh my God, we're in a cult, we're all gonna die, blah, 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 blah. Like, we could die if we don't comply. And like, we don't know if there's a guarantee that we're gonna get out of here. But the best we could do, I came to, was like I was like, I'm never taking ayahuasca again. It's a cult medicine. It's a cult drug. Like, it's not actually for your growth. This is just a bunch of fucking crazy weirdos. Like, how did I end up here? Blah, 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 blah. Mind is going crazy and nuts. And I didn't know how to get into the body yet. I hadn't learned yet. I hadn't learned to calm myself. I hadn't learned to see the trauma. I hadn't learned to comfort the little boy inside. I hadn't learned to find the unconditional love of God underlying it all yet. I had to go to the depths of hell to then find the kingdom. I had to literally experience being at my death to come to peace with it. And, you know, the thoughts there too were like, well, one, okay, how are we going to get out of here? And I'm going to go find Betty right after this, and I'm going to tell her about this, and then I'm going to go tell Taylor and Dale, blah, blah, blah. Luckily, I don't end up telling anybody that except Karen. And she kind of calms me down, and she's like, I've been in and out of here 12 times. Like, you're going to be so okay. You're so safe. Like, I understand, but you're so safe. So I didn't go tell anybody until after. I told one person. I told Betty, but she didn't see it the same way I saw it. For whatever reason. I told Taylor and Dale after. But for whatever reason, I was seeing it on a different plane, in a different level. Maybe past life trauma, I don't know, some type of special vision, who knows. Also, during that ceremony, I'm just thinking about, like, my family. I'm thinking about my mom. I'm thinking about my dad. I'm thinking about my best friends. I'm thinking about Danny Miranda. I'm thinking about Cameron Hogan. I'm thinking about my grandparents. I'm thinking about my sister. I'm just like, I'm imagining the storylines of like this dude, 23-year-old kid, like he was Northwestern football player, left college, like started doing psychedelics, traveling the world, and he went too far. He went too far into the jungle of Peru and he disappeared. That's what I thought was really going to happen. And just like the thought of that, and then I came to peace with like, if that's what happens, and then it like sends my family on this mission to like bring awareness around psychedelic culture and like ayahuasca culture. Because my thing at that ceremony was like, I want to go spread the message that this is not what it seems. And I'm spreading the message now, but this is only part of the story. This paints it out to be a horrible, bad thing. It becomes very magical and beautiful at the same time, which is all important, right? Like, true freedom is being able to be in the depths of hell and the kingdom of heaven and not being attached to either. And realizing that the kingdom of heaven and God are even with you in the depths of hell. That's the realization. So I have a really, just in essence, that second ceremony, I have a really fucking challenging time. I understood what it meant I understood why a dog curls up in the corner with its tail between its legs, because that's what my entire nervous system was doing. Like, I was so down on the level of the cell and the body and the nervous system that my entire body just like coiled up, and I had my tail between my legs, and I was face down on the floor for like 4 hours. Really scary stuff. Just like I was just waiting for it to be over. Just waiting for it to be over. I remember after the ceremony, you know, most people stay out there, hang out, talk, and people were talking, and like people were kind of just saying the normal stuff. How was your experience? Blah blah blah. Like normal conversation. I don't know what anybody's second night was really like because of the depth of mine. And I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I gotta go back. I was sweating my ass off. I was still freaking out. I was still convinced it's a cult. We're gonna die. And I start walking back, or trying to walk back to my place, and I'm still like really tripping fucking hard. I'm still really in DMT land. And I try to walk back, and I like get maybe 50 meters, and I realize like I have no idea where to go. It's the jungle, it's the middle of the night. I'm spinning, I don't know where to go, and I go back. And then I try to walk again, and I go back, and I don't go far enough to the point where I get lost or something. But I go back, and I want to go speak to Karen. I'm like, I was gonna go say, can you walk me back? Like can you just walk me back? I really want to go back. I didn't want to say anything because she was next to the shaman and everybody there. I didn't want to say, I'm fucking terrified. This is a cult, and I feel like I'm gonna die. I didn't say any of that because I didn't want to scare anybody else, or like I didn't want them to know that I knew. That was a big thing. So I remember as I'm walking back, one of the other women is like, I can walk you back. And like, I felt like the ulterior motive in that. And she was like, what, you just want Karen to walk you back? You want alone time with Karen? That was interesting. Maybe that's an irrelevant detail. But anyways, Karen ends up walking me back. Karen does not end up walking me back. Karen tells the shaman that she's gonna walk me back, and the shaman is like, I could call one of the guards. He says it in Spanish. He's like, I could call one of the guards. So he calls the guard in. Well, his name might have been Javier. So much love for this guy now. So much love for this guy Javier now. He was like an angel and a godsend. But at the time I was so scared. So the guard, Javier, starts walking me back through the jungle, and he's smoking a cigarette. He has a rifle in his hands, a fucking rifle, and he's walking me back in front of me, and we're trying to talk a little bit, but he only speaks Spanish, so I'm like talking to him, but I'm still tripping so hard. And the scariest thing was the fear of death came back so strong when we're walking through the jungle, and it felt like he took me in a circle like 10 times. So in the DMT realms, in the ulterior dimensions, time moves differently. So what was a 5 to 10 minute walk usually back to my hut was what felt like a 45-minute walk. And I was convinced that, again, he knew that I knew it was a cult, and they were leading me out in the middle of the jungle, and he might shoot me. Like, just an irrational thing to think, but like, for whatever reason, it's where my mind was going. And I kept talking to him. I'm like, Señor, ¿es correcto? ¿Es correcto? ¿Dónde es el río? I'm like, is this right? Where's the river? I don't know where we are. I'm scared. I noticed there's still fear response in my body here. Like, my legs are shaking a little bit. But now I know I'm so safe. And I was safe that whole time. So eventually we get to my place, and I'm so thankful and grateful. I'm like, thank you so much, brother. Like, oh my gosh, muchos gracias, mucho amor, muchos, all of it. And I give him a hug, and I'm like, thank you so much. And I'm still freaking out. Like, I'm still really in the fear response. And I remember I get back to my tambo, my little hut, and like, I throw everything on the floor. It's just chaos. Like, I'm spinning. I'm so fucking high still. And I look around, and I'm like, this is just a mess. Like, my room became an absolute disaster within like 5 minutes. And I realized that was a mental projection of my mind, right? That was where my mind was going. My mind had become just absolute chaos, and my room was now reflecting it. I get there disheveled and just throw everything everywhere. And for the first time, and the only time, I purge. I go outside, I'm naked, I'm looking at myself naked, and I'm seeing and feeling the full spectrum of my humanness to such a great extent. And so I end up going outside and just like so much disgust, and I purge and I throw up, and I'm naked, and I'm dumping buckets of water on my head, just like absolutely wrecked. And I look down towards the entranceway, and Javier is there just staring at me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. That's so funny. So essentially, after that purging and like crazy experience, I ended up going into my bed and laying there for probably about an hour and still tripping super hard. And I was like, is this ever going to end? Am I ever going to be able to go back into normal society? Like, am I going to get put in an insane asylum? Like, am I going to ever make it home? If I do make it home, am I going to get put in a mental hospital? Like, all these thoughts are going through my head. And it's like, how am I ever going to return to my normal waking state of consciousness after this? But while I was in the bed still having those thoughts, visions were popping in my mind that were actually starting to become extremely beautiful. I was starting to see myself, if I was all I could be. If I was all I could be, who would I be? And I saw myself as this guy, like this bearded older man, like this might be like 30, 40, 50 years old, bearded older man, long hair, like singing opera music with an earring. I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. And I had the realization, like my actualized self, like the version of myself that becomes like Christ, like essentially, like who would I be if I was literally all I could be in this timeline, in this lifetime? And the realization was like, I wouldn't even write anymore. I would just sing. I would just sing and speak. That's it. I wouldn't write. And many other realizations of just like what's actually important to me. Like, who's the type of person I want to be? And there was many visions of like, who could I be? What would it be like? How would I live my life? I basically just walk around speaking my truth. It's kind of what I'm gravitating towards now. But it became very clear, like, if I make it out of here, I'm going to commit my life to this work. I'm going to commit my life to the path. I'm going to commit my life to God. And 2 months later, it feels true. So I was oscillating between having these grandiose visions, seeing the future, seeing potential realities, my actualized self, and I'm never going to make it out of here and I'm going to die in Peru. And I think that was the spark that preeminated the realizations or the sights or the visions of who could I be. Was I might not get out of here, so if I do, who would I be? Like, coming to terms with, many times during this whole journey, I was like, I'm not going to make it out of here. And from that place came, if somehow I do, who will I be and what will I do? So it's like I needed to go to the depths of hell to see who I would be in a peak. So I'm kind of bouncing between that for a few hours in my bed by myself, not coming down, like wondering what is this ever gonna be over? Something that was coming in my mind was like, Karen had said before, she's like, there's a few thoughts that might come up during this for you. She's like, one of them is like, is this ever going to be over? Another is, I'm going to die. Am I going to die? And am I going to be okay? And she's like, you can always remind yourself that you're going to be okay. You're not going to die. And it is going to be over. So I had that in my mind. And that was very helpful. Now, as I'm laying there in my bed, just like grappling with everything, Karen comes to my tambo. She comes to my hut, and she helps basically ground me back to reality. She helps bring me back to reality. And she does that through conversation, through talking to me. We sat outside and had she's like, drink a ton of water. Drink a ton of water because it's going to flush the DMT out of your system. So I drink a ton of water, and I end up coming down, and she gives me her potato, and it was super sweet. And I felt very safe and supported and held. So over the next few days, I'm still fighting this fear response. I'm still very much scared. Fear comes up over the next few days all the time. It comes up just in the middle of the day. It comes up especially at night, and there's just a lot of fear. But I was convinced that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get out of here, and it's going to be okay. But I was I don't think I'm ever going to drink ayahuasca again. Now, 36 hours later, I end up sitting in the ceremony again and drinking again and having a conversation with myself the days preceding that of well, why did I come here? Also, other things were coming up. This revealed a pattern in me that I hadn't seen to this point, and that's what this medicine does. It reveals subconscious patterns. And it revealed a pattern of my tendency to leave things in the middle when it got hard. High school relationship, I left in the middle when it got hard. College, football, I left in the middle when it got hard. College in general, I left in the middle because I found it easier, better path. So I had this ability, this strategist ability to escape situations and get myself out of what's hard for what's easy and what's nice. So I was shown that, I saw that pattern, and I realized maybe it's my work to sit through this. This is why actually my soul brought me here. This is why my higher self brought me here, to learn this lesson of how can I stick things out. So I remember having a conversation with myself, a pep talk, and writing myself a letter I love you so much, trust yourself, you're going to be so okay, you're so held, you're so good, God has you, you're going to be good. So I end up going into the third ceremony, and here's where things start to shift. So in the third ceremony, I start to understand the inner workings of the medicine in my spirit on a deeper level. I feel like I understand what's the spirit for the first time. I connect with the spirit in myself. And I'm dancing with all the negative emotions that are in myself and my family, and I'm seeing them all, and I'm noticing where do they arise in the body, what happens, when do I not want to fight it? Oh, I go to sleep on this side. Oh, when do I want to make sure I look okay? I go to sleep on this side. Oh, why? It's all connected to all of these patterns. And the decision is every time the anxiety, the fear, the sadness, the grief, the desire, the depression, all of it, the desire to go to sleep, when all of it comes up in ceremony, what to do is sit up. This is why yogis meditate, so that their spirit can ascend and rise and have a clear channel. And not slouch, but sit up and choose courage and choose strength. And that's why they called it a spiritual gym. That's why it was called... That's why it was we're strengthening our spirit out here, because every time you want to go to sleep and lay down during ceremony, And I have a lot of that because I realized in that ceremony I'm an old soul. So I've been here many times and my soul's tired. So that precedes another realization about football. And I'm closing my eyes because I feel like I'm getting into a channeling flow and it's helping me stay really locked in. So I'm going to try to stay in here. So I come to a realization about being an old soul during that ceremony, connecting with my spirit, realizing like a big part of me is like so tired of this cycle. It's over and over and over again, past lives. I learned that the next ceremony. But the question I ask myself is like, okay, how do I keep my spirit young and fresh? Like I'm 23, right? I'm young and fresh. How do I do it? I want to keep doing what inspires me. I want to do what inspires me. I want to write. I want to make music. I want to create art. I want to play sports, which precedes a new realization the next day. But I was like, I got to do what inspires me. That's how I keep my spirit youthful, alive, and fresh. And every time that desire to go to sleep came and you sit up straight and you choose love, you choose, despite the other energies going on in the body, the fear, whatever it is, you choose to get into the heart space and open. And this doesn't have to be ayahuasca. This is any time. This is sitting in meditation. This is just like going about your day. It's like, I understood. I'm like, Jordan Peterson said, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Now, he did that for like masculinity and strength, which is great. But there's a deeper spiritual realization of sitting up straight with your shoulders back is choosing God. It's choosing spirit. I read a passage that week that I read like a few pages of this book called about Saint Francis. And it said in there, it was a banger quote. It was like, Saint Francis is the mark of a dutiful man who has taken the matter that God entrusted him and transmuted it into 4D spirit. Transmuted it into spirit. And so what does that mean? We come into these physical bodies as spiritual entities. That is the life force of the universe. That's consciousness. Realization, enlightenment, transcending karma, escaping the wheel of suffering is becoming so aligned with spirit, fourth dimensional, non-material, that you no longer need a physical body. This is why Jesus, when he rose from the dead, people have said, and it feels true, what rose was his ethereal body. It was his light body. This is why the yogis and mystics, they don't need to eat. They live off prana, they live off life force, they live off air. They don't need to sleep because they've completely transubstantiated their matter, their three-dimensional physical human meat suit, and aligned themselves with fourth-dimensional spiritual reality while still being in reality, in the world, not of the world. So I was figuring all this out in the ayahuasca ceremony. I was feeling I am spirit within. There are other dimensions. There's other realms. And something that began to happen, well, it became kind of fun. Like there were group energetics going on the entire time without needing to talk. There was some awkward silences. There was some power dynamics from the shaman. I can feel them still in me. There was some nervous laughter. There would be silence. And in the silence, I was playing in that silence in this fourth dimension. I saw everybody around me, but not seeing with sight. I remember Dale and I had a moment this ceremony. This was such a funny moment. Taylor's sitting to my right, Dale's sitting to my left. It's like one of these in-between moments, and we look at each other, and I think we were both like, what the fuck is going on? He's like, this is fucking crazy. I remember him doing that. He's like, this is fucking crazy. And we were laughing. And dude, this guy was purging his fucking ass off. I admire his warrior spirit. He had so much courage. He just like went straight into the darkness and became best friends with it and just chose to let it all go. So beautiful. It was so fucking inspiring. So, hanging out in this alter dimension, I'm feeling like, I'm starting to giggle. I'm like, I'm starting to learn this. I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to just get this realm, this different realm. And the shaman, I believe, picks up on this. And we start communicating. At first, I'm like, are we communicating? Is he reading my mind? Am I reading his mind? Are we communicating on a different plane right now? And what was happening was we were communicating through the third eye, telecommunication. And I know how all this sounds, but it is what it is. It's the truth. So we're communicating on this fourth dimension, and I go into another pretty intense fear response. I remember like sitting, so he's facing this way. I end up sitting like here with my hands on my feet, like cowering at him almost, and like bowing down. I remember bowing down for like 20 minutes. He was doing an arcana, which is basically a quote-unquote blessing. I don't know if it's a blessing. To be honest, I don't think it's a blessing. I think it's a maintaining ownership and authority of the space, which is also okay, and it's necessary for him to hold that space. But basically, he hits you on the head with a big leaf for like 5 minutes, and it happens with multiple people, 4 people per ceremony. So while it was happening, I'm into the fear again. I'm into the fear response again. I was in my fear. I felt like a little monkey bowing before the alpha. Or like the prince bowing before a king. And my hands are on my feet, and I'm bowing to him, and we're communicating the whole time. And I'm just like this the whole time. Like I don't want to look, but I'm seeing everything. Now, I want to get myself back into good posture because I'm completely safe, and I remember that night feeling I've learned more about human nature in these few hours than I have in like 100 lifetimes. I realized like at our base, at our core, we are both monkeys in the jungle with egos, with power dynamics, with trust issues, with the desire to manipulate and control, with intense fear of each other. But we are also spiritual beings. We are also spirit. And we can choose which do we want to play as, which do we want to stay in that state. So that's the third ceremony. I just like totally went inside right there. Like for like 15 minutes, I was having some wild fucking visions. It feels complete. So back to normal world stuff a little bit. Something that came to me during that ceremony was I got to do what inspires me. So this next night, there's no ceremony. It's 10-23-24. Very important numerology for me. And I get a crazy dream. And the dream is that I'm with all my best friends from high school. And we are, for whatever reason, driving around and visiting a college. And in the dream, I get the realization to check my phone, and I realize we're at like 111 College Street or whatever it was. I don't remember details. And in the dream, I came to the realization that, oh my gosh, I could play baseball here. And the university that we were at, that we looked up, was called like Yale College in Iowa, which is not a thing. Now, what I've realized is in my dreams, like, the subconscious seems to pick up patterns, but it doesn't pick up details. So the pattern, or the deep desire that was being revealed from the depths of my heart and soul, because my ego was starved of business, of doing, of creator economy, of money, of travel, of any of that stuff. The realization was I could go play baseball at this D3 school called Yale University in Iowa. So its details are off. That wasn't exactly right. But the underlying ethos or sentiment of that dream was, I want to go back to a D3 college near home and play sports and play football. That was the real realization. So I wake up in the middle of the night and like, it's like 4 a.m., just like now. And for the first time in years, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I want to play football again. And I can't go back to sleep. There's too much energy. I'm too fucking excited. I'm like, I want to make this happen. I think I want to make this happen. So I sit with it for a while. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, would it be possible? Do I have eligibility? I think I might, but I'm not sure. Etc., etc. Like, I didn't know my next move after this. I was told by an astrologist that it would be like, it'd be wise to go back to college. It's like either go to college or stay on the shaman spiritual path, which becomes a turning point to make a decision there. And something else coming up, but he had told me basically, he's like, I think it'd be really good for you to go back to college. And like a psychic had told me that, and I was like, I can't imagine going back to college. Like, I'm this entrepreneur, I'm this traveler. But now it was framed as like, this seems like it actually could be the way. It could be the way forward. I could play for another year. I could just have fun. I can just do it for fun. I could do it for the love of the game. I can still do all my things on the side that I'm still going to be doing and creating: retreats, schools, transcendence, etc. Transcendence wasn't a thing quite yet, but it was evolving. And I could ground myself somewhere and like, I could get grounded. I could have a little bit of stability. I haven't had stability in a long time. I've been so nomadic. I've been so spontaneous. So I began to contemplate that idea. And it was kind of driving me crazy of like, I think I want to go do this, but I don't know if I have eligibility. So I had to sit there with that for the next 5 days and not know whether or not I had eligibility. But that next day, I remember I'm starting, like, this is around day 5, and I'm starting to get more and more in touch with my intuition, my animal primal instincts in nature. And I remember during that day, like, I just really wanted to run around like on all fours like a monkey. And then I really wanted to, I started running around my little house and like throwing the football, basically. I started like acting like I was throwing the football. I went down to the river and I was throwing rocks around, and I was imagining that I was a quarterback and I was throwing, and I was like, I want to fucking do this. I really want to do this. Why not? So it's like, once I starved my ego enough and my body of distractions, of stimulation, of pleasure, of worldly things, business, entrepreneurship, all of it, my heart and spirit's desires came forth, and I realized I wanted to put my own inspiration, my own play, love for something so pure to me in my heart and my entire life's path of playing football. I want to put that before everything I'm worried about. I want to put it before all the business, all the money, all the projects. I want to put it before that. And I want to have it be of the same importance. And that's the thing right now, too. It's like I'm building transcendence, which I believe is going to change the world. in some capacity. I'm building retreats. I'm building potentially an in-person retreat center. Like, all these things, the key right now for me is dancing between there is no superior or inferior or more important, less important things at all. Everything is just is. Everything is just expression. Everything is just pure. And creating the business, running the retreat, recording the video, this is of the same essence. It's just God experiencing itself as going to class or playing football or whatever, like sitting here in Hawaii. It's all the same. Like, there's no better or worse. There's no, I have to force myself to do this thing. And when I start forcing myself to do something, the key indicator now is to stop. And so about 30 minutes ago in this video, I stopped the video because I got an indicator in my body to stop. So I stopped, I went inside, I had water, and I sat there and I answered a text message, and then I was like, I got the hit that, okay, it's time to go back and record more. And it's been happening with writing, it's been happening with creating, it's been happening with workouts. It's like, there's no force, it's just what is arising to me in each moment. And can I flow between each thing? So football came into my awareness then. And now I was really contemplating it. I was starting to run around and I feel pretty excited about it. But I didn't know yet. And I was coming to peace with not knowing. That wasn't fully there until like the past month of peace with not knowing. But some other magical things start to happen around this same time where I'm getting in touch with my instincts and primal nature. I'm starting to connect with animals. The first time it happened was I went down by the river and there was a group of butterflies flying around. And for whatever reason, I had the intuitive hit to put my hand out and like ask them to sit down. And they all sat down. And some other magical things happened with like butterflies coming to me, one sitting on my foot, being called to go down to the river again, and seeing like a group of 40 butterflies waiting for me, and realizing that the butterflies symbolize beauty and support and following and brotherhood. I was also beginning to communicate with the forest and the jungle at this time. Like it started with sitting in meditation one time, and I was laying down actually kind of in meditation. And for the first time, instead of just a chirp of a bird or a frog, I heard sit up, sit up, sit up. I was like, whoa, what? So I got myself to sit up, and from that point on, for the next 5 days, I was in nearly constant communication with all that was around me. The birds were all talking to me. The forest was all talking to me at every moment. It was all connected to every thought in my mind. There was no separation. There was God talking to God. There is the universe talking to an expression of the universe. Do you see? There's no out there or in here. There's all one. So I begin to have these quite mystical experiences, and my awareness is becoming really open. I feel like I'm learning really fast. And the fourth ceremony is also very magical. So to recap, the first ceremony was warrior energy, that's about it. Second ceremony was the depths of hell, my death, and then seeing my potential. The third ceremony was understanding the fourth dimension, telecommunication, the third eye, spirit, material reality, figuring it out, realizing again this is a cult, but it's okay. It's part of culture. And then the fourth ceremony, I was shown a lot. I have to go internal of what do I want to share, because some of it I don't think I want to share, like the depths of the realizations. What feels okay to say feels like I understood. Sip of water time. Because this is a very important ceremony for me. Okay, so the realizations that I came to in that ceremony and the things I was shown are for me. They're for me. They're to keep to me. Now, a few things I can say broader, more context, general, is I understood past lives. I understood how the human spirit incarnates through each generation. I understood that humanity, the spirit of humanity is dying, is on a crash course to killing itself and destroying itself, and the spirit of nature, and I feel love saying this, the feeling of the spirit of the plants and the trees and the medicine and the animals, like they want to help the spirit of humanity that has fallen so far from before Adam ate the tree of knowledge, or ate the apple, whatever, before Adam ate the apple. And Adam eating the apple is metaphorical for us becoming conscious enough to have the choice of free will, I believe, to where we can choose to make our own decisions. And so what we've chosen is the human ego I saw as this fungus that grew on the earth. The earth is pure, and a fungus grew on the earth, and it's infested the earth, and it is potential of destroying the earth, which gives it life. It has potential of overtaking it like a fungus or a virus does. That's the human ego. But it's the spirit, the human spirit. I saw humanity, I saw like the different species on the planet, like the bees, the birds, the humans, the plants, the trees, the animals, all as these, how do I say it? Different spirits, different tribes of spirits that have been here forever, for so long. And so like the butterflies have their own spirit tribe, and the birds have their own spirit tribe, and the plants and the human tribe had fallen quite far and had been destroying itself basically from the inside out. War, politics, fighting each other, egos. And that is how extinction happens. And like I saw humanity being on the brink of extinction, and it is the spirit of all that is around us, the spirit of God, you could say the spirit of the earth, the spirit of medicine, the spirit of ayahuasca, the spirit of the plants, the trees, the animals, that are holding us afloat, barely. But we're about to hit a spiritual turning point. We're about to enter a new earth where people realize their nature as spirit, and they see through and transcend the ego. Now, we can still have our egos and personalities and play that game, but if we realize we're all one, there's no more fighting, there's no competition, there's no resentment, anger, fear, jealousy, war. It all disappears when we realize we're all one. And people have been talking about this for thousands of years. So I'm not saying anything new. But that was very deep. The realizations in that ceremony and the realizations about myself. And something I was grappling with the whole time was the depth of which I felt my soul's purpose to be in this incarnation. And the desire to go to sleep. Like, I just wanted to curl up on, like, the shaman's lap. Not the shaman, but Karen's lap. I wanted to curl up on her lap. And, like, the other, like, I wanted to curl up on the lap of, like, whoever, somebody. I just wanted to go to sleep. The little boy in me wanted to go to sleep, but the man that knows, like, his destiny was like, sit up. Sit up. And the sitting up happened, and I'm going to sit up now. The sitting up happened. I had my arcana myself, so like I go to the middle and I'm getting blessed by the shaman, and it did feel like a blessing there. It did feel like a blessing. It's still working in me. The ayahuasca, this is the thing I've heard. The most important part of ayahuasca is the 6 to 9 months of integration afterwards. So like, me recording this video series is part of my integration. And explaining it and feeling it all again. And I remember when I was getting blessed, like the desire, the spirit, I was connected to spirit, like sitting up straight. And then I'd slouch a little bit. I'd go down, shoulders come down, back gets arched. And Karen came behind me. I asked about this. She didn't even remember doing it. She picked my chin up, put my shoulders back, put my back in order, and pushed me up on the chest. And it felt super powerful. It felt like she was helping me push myself up into like kinghood. So that was the 4th ceremony. Is there anything else? My purpose became clear as spreading love, spreading truth, and exploring the nature of the universe and like the future of humanity. That's what it became. So after the ceremony, things get a little bit lighter. They get much lighter, actually. Basically, I end up hanging out in 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional land for hours and hours and hours, and it was a little bit anxiety inducing, like, will I ever come down from here? And in a way, like, the answer is yes and the answer is no. Like, the depths at which I saw. I don't know if you could hear that. There's stuff going on around here. the depths at which I saw and felt have not really gone away. They've actually gotten stronger with the integration. But anyways, after the ceremony, we end up hanging out for hours, like up in the Tambo. Me, Taylin, Dale, a bunch of the women, Russ, really cool guy from Costa Rica, and me and Taylin and Dale just had the greatest conversations that night. They had come down, so they were back like to pretty normal state of consciousness. I was still hanging out up there, and I began to feel comfortable hanging out up there in the 4D, 5D lands. And like I was so fucking clear on like this is the future of humanity. Like it's a new Earth. The singularity's coming. Like we're about to have a collective awakening. It's all happening right now. So it was a combination of that serious nature and deep conversations with like so much fun. Like we had a sleepover up there. We slept in the Tambo. What a magical night. We slept in the Tambo for about, I probably slept for like an hour or two. And even when I woke up in the morning at 8 a.m., I was like still kind of tripping a little bit. But we stayed up there and just had the greatest conversations for like 8 hours right after the ceremony. And it was so fun. That was the most fun experience. That was the most fun night. Like it was a hard ceremony, the fourth ceremony. Hard in the way that it was just felt so deep and so true that I remember asking, I was like, is it almost over? Like that was the little boy. Like, is it almost over? I asked Karen and she's like, oh, I think it's only just begun. And I was like, oh no. And it did feel like it went forever. But then I started to ease into the state of if it goes on forever, that's okay. I'm cool hanging out here. So what's next in this series of events? Do I have permission to say? I wanted to check for permission because it's so out there in a way, but it's also like it's deeply true. So I got permission via my body and some taps, essentially. Yeah, now I'm getting shoot it, say it. So around the 8th or 9th day, now I've been communicating with everything around me for a day or two. I'm super sensitive. I'm super tuned in. I don't want to listen to anything or read anything. I'm just processing things in my body the whole time. And I remember sitting in my bed one day, like around midday, processing some stuff. Basically like somatic releasing things. And I turn around and I see a 5-foot-long iguana staring at me. It looked like a dragon, just staring at me. And what I'd realized is that as I became more light throughout this experience, more darkness wanted to get a piece of my light. It happened in the 4th ceremony. Afterwards, I remember like I went pee in the jungle afterwards in the dark. And like for the first time I felt dark energy. I felt entities. I felt negative spirit trying to come at me. A huge frog came into space. More lizards were appearing, blah, blah, blah. So this iguana, this fucking dragon, appears in my backyard staring at me. It was the biggest thing I've ever seen. It was like as big as this cooler I'm looking at, maybe bigger. And I was again scared. Now, for some reason, why, I can't tell you, but I decided to go to my books app on my phone, and I pull out a book called The Golden Future, A New Earth, How to Reach the Fifth Dimension. Awesome book by Diana Cooper, this like mystical witch-like woman. And in that book, I read the first page, and that's all I needed to read in that moment. It was like you come to Earth with guides and angels to help you. Like you can communicate and ask for help from your guardian angel and your angels and your guides, but you have to ask. In order to receive their guidance and help, you must ask, or else it would contravene your free will. Because that's what the human experience is. It's the experiment of free will. It's a very interesting experiment. So under our free will, we can ask for guidance from our guides, our spirit guides, our angels, our archangels, our guardian angel. And right when I read that page, I start to hear footsteps going around the perimeter of my tambo, my little house. And my first response is fear. I was like, who's there? So I keep looking, but it's like I hear them on the left and the right at the same time. Footsteps on both sides, in all four directions, all around me, circling. I'm like, how is this possible? And because I read that passage and I was so open, I said, are you my guardian angel? And I get one acorn or whatever, something that fell on the roof. It was like, yep. I was like, whoa. And for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I end up communicating with him, with it. I remember asking, like, are there two of you? Because there's, like, multiple directions, and it was like, no. And I was like, is there one of you? And it was like, no. It's like, I was like, oh, you transcend numbers? It was like, yep. I don't remember the nature of the conversation so specifically. Let me see if I can remember anything. Can't remember specifically, but I don't think it's that important to know specifically. The important thing was the knowingness that I was divinely protected. And you are too. We are the sons and daughters of God. We're divinely protected by angels. And so now there was my awareness, like, my guardian angel is around. Whoa. And I would check in sometimes. I would say, are you still there? I would check in, like, kind of out of anxiety. Are you still there? And something to my left would, like, tap. Be like, yep. Even now, when I just asked for permission, it was a tap, and it was, yep. It was like, yeah, you can share. And I feel like a rush of wind or whatever it is. I also was starting to hear a flap of a wing in my right ear, which I thought was a falcon. I thought my spirit animal might be a falcon, but I think it's an eagle. I don't know for sure. I do think it's an eagle. But now I had awareness that these two things were with me. And I was like, oh, who am I going to tell this to? This is why people ask me sometimes, like, how was your experience? Like, what happened? What did you learn? And I don't go into that crazy detail because, like, I mean, this video's been, an hour and a half already? And I'm not even through the ceremonies. Because the depth at which, and I didn't even share everything that happened. But to most people, it's like, who am I going to share this to? Most society's like going to throw you in a mental hospital. But I hope if you're still listening to this, you can see I'm very clear. I'm still very grounded. This is the next wave of humanity. And the more you open yourself to these frequencies and believe, it sounds like Santa Claus stuff, but if you can open yourself that there might be more to this human existence than you previously thought, you just might start seeing signs, miracles, and synchronicities. You might just start connecting with a higher self. You might just start connecting with guides, angels, helpers, spirit animals. But it takes becoming aware. It takes being open enough to consider it as even a possibility. And it takes getting clear internally. That's why this was all revealing itself to me when I cut out so much of the stimulation. When I was in the jungle for 10 days, eating basically nothing. When I got sensitive, the kingdom of God shone forth. And that is our default state. Look at kids, imaginary friends. It's like, when are you going to outgrow that? It's like, what? No. Jesus said, unless you become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Children are naturally tapped in, and we forget as adults with serious lives and all these matrix societal things. But the truth of our nature and our reality is that of love, is that of spirit, is that of multiple dimensions, and we have guides, helpers, and angels with us at all moments. And it feels like my soul is calling to share this stuff. Like I've just been an expressive person. It's in my astrology chart. I've always been this type. And I never thought I'd be sharing these ideas, but I can't help but share the truth of my experience. And like I was saying, the more you tap into these frequencies, the more you're going to meet other people who are tapped into the same frequencies. Now it's like everybody I meet is tapped into these frequencies. Everybody I've met here on this island of Hawaii that I've actually had meaningful connection and conversation with, super tapped into all this stuff, even more than me. The people are there. A lot of people are closet mystics, which is funny because the coffee shop I go to here is called Mystic Closet. But there's so many closet mystics in the world. People that have had spiritual experiences, people that see spirit, people that feel things on a psychic level, but like they're scared of saying it, which is understandable. And nobody has to share anything, of course, but there is more to this world than we previously once thought. So, yeah, from there, where do we go? I think we go to water and then the fifth ceremony. High frequency water, stainless glass, unpurified, super clean. Put good water in your body. It's worth the extra couple dollars. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. Every molecule in this universe is energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything you consume is frequency and energy. And I'm not perfect with it by any means, but our higher self knows. And it just tastes better, just knowing that. Okay. So, fifth ceremony. Fifth ceremony is a daytime ceremony. So this is a super interesting experience to have. So we basically wake up at 5 a.m. and drink ayahuasca for breakfast. And that's a pretty wild experience in and of itself, but that was super trippy. I was faced with a decision in that ceremony. You know, each ceremony, I ended up taking a certain amount of the medicine, 3/4 of a cup, 1 cup, and then it would be, I would have to make the inner decision and find the courage to take another cup or to take another half a cup. And I would fight with myself for so long about it. That courage, it's the most important thing one can have. Because courage is how you rise above the survival paradigm in the Hawkins map of consciousness and ascend into positive truth with reality and then the spiritual paradigm. If you don't know what any of that means, look up the map of consciousness, look up the level of courage. Courage is the tipping point. Basically, courage is the tipping point. That's like a chapter. That's got to be something. Yeah, I think it's got to be something. Anyways, the 5th ceremony, I took like half of a cup. I mean, the last one was so deep. I was like, I might just angel for the 5th one, which means I'm not going to take any. I'm just going to be there and just be a supportive person. But decided to drink again. I was like, I'm here. I'm going to do it. So I took half a cup and I was dancing with like some crazy spiritual thoughts, and I decided to go walk outside, and I'm looking out, and it's like the morning, and I was afraid to take the next cup because I was afraid to become enlightened. I was like, if I take this next cup, I'm going to become enlightened. And I was thinking about this thing called the final doorway that David Hawkins talked about, where like all is surrendered to God, and like your entire life is surrendered to God. That's the final doorway to enlightenment. And I was like, I'm going to do this. So I go back in and I take the cup, and when I went back in, everybody was kind of in their own process, but I had this sense that like, and the shaman knew this, he was probably tapped into it. The group, they were waiting to really start the ceremony for me to go in with them. I was still floating on the surface, so they were waiting for me to go in with them. So I went in, I got another shot, I asked for like half a cup, he gave me like probably more, and I took it. So gross. And I end up like coming to a conclusion, which I'd been debating about in my life for a long time, of like, am I supposed to go the enlightenment path, or am I supposed to go the wealth creation path? And I came to the realization that the way was the enlightenment path. Most people will choose the wealth creation path. There's a few quotes from Jesus about this. He's like, no man can worship two gods. You either love one and despise the other, or hate one and love the other. And he's talking about money and God, basically. I just read a quote this morning from him. He said, he was talking to some rich man who like lived by the commandments and was like a servant of God, but he wouldn't sell his land. Jesus was like, you have one more thing to do. Sell everything you own, give it to the poor, and you'll join me in the kingdom of heaven. And the man said, no, I can't do it. And he got scared and he ran back to his land. And what Jesus said about it was like, easier for a camel to enter through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, my interpretation is that it doesn't mean that money is evil. It doesn't mean that abundance and wealth are evil. But if that's the priority over God, then God will elude us. Who said it? I don't know, I might have tweeted it, but I don't know if I got it from somewhere. I mean, I got it from consciousness from God, so it's not mine at all anyways, but it was, Oh, it was a play on Naval Ravikant's tweet where he's like, if you secretly despise money, it will elude you. And I think I rephrased it to, if you secretly put money over God, God will always elude you. And so these things were kind of floating in my awareness, and I was thinking about a guy named Frank Yang, this enlightened guy on YouTube, bodybuilder, really cool guy, and this girl, Nikki Ortega, who I keep thinking about for whatever reason. She's like a mentor. She's been a mentor. I mentioned her in a few videos. But I basically came to the conclusion, like, this is the path. Everything else will come. Everything I'm fearful of, which is basically just money. That's it. That's the fear. Money. Another fear arises in a bit, but the thing preventing me from saying I'm going to go the path to enlightenment is money. And I think that's the same for most people. But in that state, I saw it clearly that if enlightenment was the focus, and if it was achieved, there would be no worries at all about money. It would fade into irrelevancy, and it would solve God would solve the problem himself. Again, I'm just pulling Jesus quotes because I'm reading the gospel right now, so it's very in my awareness. But he said, look at the birds of the sky. They neither reap nor they sow, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. So basically what that means is the birds, and he talks about the lilies of the field, they neither toil nor they spin, yet your heavenly Father clothes them. So he's like, don't be anxious about what you're going to wear. Don't be anxious about what you're going to eat. Your Father, God, the universe, consciousness, the quantum field, whatever you want to say, will always feed you. And so, where did I even come with this? It felt so relevant to say. Right. If we achieve and realize our Christ nature within us, our God consciousness within us, being one with the universe, a part of the earth experiencing itself, the earth will feed us. God will feed us. I've learned that from meeting homeless people here in Hawaii that are super enlightened and super tapped in. They survive. They don't have worries. They don't worry about money. So that was the realization. And the realization was like, I'm going to devote myself to this path, and I'm going to devote myself to the practice of meditation. So I'm like, I'm going to do an hour in the morning and an hour at night every night. Now that was coming still from rational mind, like planning structure. I do want to be sitting with myself a lot, but like right now in Hawaii, because I have so much space and no obligations, like there almost isn't a need to meditate. Meditation happens naturally as it arises, and it'll be the same. It's going to be an interesting dance for me to go back to college from this place and be back in the world, which I think is a big part of my purpose. Like, I think I'm meant to be in the world as a light worker, spreading light, spreading God, spreading love in society, in normal society, as a football player. So another big part of that fifth ceremony, after that realization was reached, like, this is the path forward, what then she showed me, ayahuasca, was my deepest insecurity, still. And it was sexual insecurity. And for the next few hours, in broad daylight, I'm sitting there basically grappling with my sexual insecurity, basically doing this with my legs, like closing them, basically. sexual insecurity, and I realized that this is my deepest thing to transcend and go beyond. So I sat with that for a long time. And some beautiful things happened at that ceremony. Really beautiful things happened. It was daytime, and so towards the end, the shaman's son was there with us, sitting there. I mean, he's like 13, 14, so he doesn't do the medicine yet. He will soon. And he's going to be a great man. I told him that. I see it in him. He's going to be a great man. Oh, it was so beautiful. Like, people were sharing songs, and then they were like, Jack, Taylor, and Dale, you guys want to share a song or something? And we were all kind of like quiet. And I was like, I'll share a dance. And then everybody looked at me. And I was like, oh, by myself? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll get up. And so I get up. And one of the other women, Alyssa, so sweet. She's like, I can play a song for you or something so you could dance. I was like, that'd be amazing. I'd appreciate it. And then Franklin, really great guy from Peru, starts playing music. That was one of the most at-home feelings I ever felt. Despite it feeling like a cult, despite feeling like I was going to die, I'm noticing I wanted to cry. Despite feeling like a cult, despite feeling like I'm going to die, despite not knowing if I could trust the shaman, despite communicating across the forest in the fourth dimension if we could trust each other, at the end of the day, we were still a family. And Franklin played his song for me, and everybody was tapping along and singing, and I was dancing in front of everybody. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I don't cry often. It doesn't come out. It comes up, but it doesn't come out. So this is actually a pretty big moment. Then Dale got up and he shared a dance, and that was awesome. And it was just the most magical 10 days of my life, and I'll never be the same after it. I remember right after feeling, we got to share some thoughts with the group, and what I shared was after the ceremony ended, and it was like I'm still kind of like on ayahuasca, but I'm not. I feel just present now, but I'm like immersed into a new reality. Like I'm a new level of embodied and grounded in my reality right now. And what I said is like there is no medicine the whole time. Like this state that we're all in after the 5th ayahuasca ceremony at noon, after it finishes, the state of presence, the state of groundedness, the state of clear seeing, all of our emotions coming up, all of our triggers, all of our insecurities. This is the truth of what our human experience is. And ayahuasca just took back the curtain. It took back the veil. But it was always there. And so, part of me after that ceremony was like, I wish I stayed in ignorance. I wish I stayed in ignorance, in my youthful ignorance, and never saw any of this and could have just kept playing Xbox and kept eating fucking cereal. And like I could still do those things, but like there's really like such small desire. Maybe once it could be fun, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you hear what I've told you, you can't unhear it. So after that ceremony, it's starting to get light out here in the early morning. It's really beautiful. After that ceremony, we broke the fast with like some incredible food. I can go back and taste it. The first thing was tasting like onion, and it was like this sauteed onion, and it was so good. It was like heaven eating that. And then they had these like dough like things. And, oh, just a sense of peace. That's why I'm yawning, like, to conclude it. I feel like I've gone on the journey of my journeys over the course of this video. Again, I've relived it. This is me integrating it again even deeper into my body and deeper into my system. And that sense of peace afterwards. By then, I was getting ready to leave. I was excited to go back to normal life. And I didn't end some of the relationships like I'd like to. And what I mean by that is, like, I was like, I want to be in my own energy again. Like, this group has been awesome and super supportive, but I really am burnt out. I'm socially burnt out. I want to be by myself. And so with a few people, it just ended on not the best foot at the airport. Like, not in a way of anything bad was said, but like me just being like, I want to go be by myself. And that's okay. I could have stated that, but I didn't state it, and I kind of avoided it, and I kind of like just ran off into my own corner, which is another like pattern that came up. So, and I felt called to share it. So yeah, I already have talked to those few people about it, and it's chill, but something that came up, something for me to digest. So, not to end this on a somber note, like that little thing happened, but overall, like, absolute life-changing experience. Will I be back? That's the question. When I was dancing, numerology was popping in my head about 23 and 24. So 23 is significant for a few reasons. It's always meant sports to me. It's always been significant with sports. Michael Jordan, 23, favorite basketball player. LeBron James, other favorite basketball player, 23. My dad wore 23 in college. I wore 23 a little bit in youth basketball, but my dad wore 23, and like he has his jersey framed in his office, 23, Minnesota State Vikings. Super cool. I was committed there for a little bit. Another story. And 24 was always my number. 24 was my number growing up my whole life in every sport. Football, baseball, basketball. I wore 24 everywhere. And I'm getting chills as I say it, because the realization was, I'm going to be back to the jungle. You see this? It's like, yep, I'm going to be back to the jungle sometime at 24 years old. So I have some time. There's a lot of life to go be lived. Which I'm going to get into in the next videos. Like, where am I going from here? Where am I going from? Because I go from Peru to Austin, and that's super magical month. And then I go home for a little bit, deciding to play football, and now I'm in Hawaii. So the next year or so is going to be an interesting chapter, for sure. And I will feel called. I do already feel called to return to the medicine, probably after next football season, I would guess. I don't know for sure though. I'm going to be open to life, but that feels right. Sometime after the next football season. So Ayahuasca, grandmother, abuela, so much gratitude to you, so much gratitude to this earth. So much gratitude to Karen, so much gratitude to the shaman, so much gratitude to Tail, to Dale, to Tail and I combined their names. To Betty, to Tosh, to Elisa, to Russ, to Aldi, to Nick, to Franklin, to my Tambo where I lived, to the birds around me, to the butterflies around me, to the lizards around me, to my guardian angel for revealing itself to me, spirit animals for revealing themselves to me, life for revealing its magical, mystical nature to me, and to myself for finding the courage to go do it and to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And gratitude to you for listening to this whole video, if you're still here, which would be incredible. If you made it to the end, you're super special. Your curiosity is incredible. Your willingness to listen is incredible. Your openness is incredible. I mean, most people would have most definitely clicked off the video a long time ago. So if you're still listening, the light of God is within you. I love you. Thank you for watching. Aloha. Namaste.